Louisa.
Hi, Susie.
Nice to see you on this cold December day. We have been planning this for some time, so thank you so much for making the time. Now, you've been one of our first parents ever to join Wild About Play when we launched in November 2019. So thank you for speaking to us today. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself, please, for the benefit of our audience who don't know you?
Yeah, sure. So I have been a primary school teacher for the last 15 years. I've also got my own little tutoring thing going on, and I work with educational psychologists to implement strategies and ideas for children who are perhaps struggling at school. Typically they have learning difficulties, but often not. It could just be concentration difficulties. So I work alongside educational psychologists to make sort of school life happier for primary children.
Lovely. And how much did you know about outdoor education before you brought your children over to us, and why did you choose us?
Sure. Yeah, well, it was quite limited. My experience of outdoor education has been quite limited in that when I did my PGCE course, my teacher training course, there wasn't much in the way of showing teachers how to use outdoor spaces. But you know, I did see time and time again, year on year, that within a cohort of 30 children, many of those young children could really not cope with sitting down for any length of time and became very restless and fidgety. And that was just typical of a 4-, 5-year or 6-year-old behaviour.
Absolutely.
There's nothing sort of unique about that, but it did make me think about outdoor space and how it was used, and perhaps reluctance from teachers because they're slightly maybe fearful of taking a big class outside. But you know, when we did go outside, I really saw such value in that, and it just those perhaps, you know, behaviours of poor concentration, restlessness, slight maybe anxiety towards learning would diminish so much when the outdoors were sort of brought in and the classroom doors were open and the children could explore. And yes. I then went on to have my own 2 sons and realised exactly the same thing. Behaviour was far better when they were in the garden, we were going for a walk in the woods, than spending the whole morning inside. They just wanted to be out and explore. So I put those 2 things together really, and just thought I would love it if they could have an outdoor experience as part of their education. Then I just thought that would elicit the best sort of view towards learning going ahead for them. I thought that would really, really help them learn.
Lovely. And what was it that stood out about Wild About Play for you?
There are lots of things. I think the main criteria probably for us was the fact that you've got excellent staff and teachers who really knew a lot about how to provide education to children outside. So it's questions of how and why and how can we look at this and what can we learn from that, and all those open questions are so very important. They're critical actually for children learning to learn. It gives them confidence and it gives them a sense of sort of well-being when they're allowed to explore. And not only did you have staff to do that, but you had the space to do it in as well. It was you've got a lovely setting there with brilliant staff, and also very importantly the right staff ratios, enough staff to really talk to and have a conversation with the children. And I thought it's unique and it stood out.
Thank you. And obviously at this time of year, the cold is always an issue for parents coming to see us. What reassured you about ongoing provision in the outdoors and continuing to send both your children to us during these times?
You know what, Susie, it still rings out in my ears. And you said to me ages ago, probably about a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe even, you said there's no such thing as bad weather, it's bad weather.
Yes.
And it's so true. And as soon as you sort of realise that, and yes, you invest some money in getting the right kit, but my goodness, it makes a difference. And the boys are not cold because they have the right stuff. I'm actually really grateful that we have invested in the right clothes, because it now means that we as a family can go out on the weekends, or we're going to Scotland, in the northern part of Scotland in end of December. And I'm
Wow.
not too worried about it because I know that we're all kitted out.
Yes.
So I haven't been worried about that, because I do know that they're sort of dressed up appropriately. And I suppose there are a few extras that you do that I love. I love the sort of, hot chocolate days and
Yes.
the hand warmers. They all make a difference as well, because I feel that
They love those hand warmers.
They love them. They love in their little gloves. And yeah, having a glass of hot chocolate or a mug of hot chocolate is really nice. But I think if you dress your children suitably, then there's absolutely no reason why they can't be warm and comfortable being outside.
Yes, and it's where we're meant to be, isn't it? I mean, it is where we're meant to be, and our bodies are actually built for acclimatizing to the outdoors, which is really interesting. It's just our mind that thinks, oh, I want to, huddle in and be cozy.
And I have to say, when I pick up George or Arthur, my two boys, they're always warm. I bring them home, the jumpers come off and they're warm. They never complain about being cold. So I also trust, the staff know that put extra layers on if needed, or take them off if needed if it gets warmer. And that's the right approach, is that you just adapt.
Yes, exactly. We do those checks regularly. Yes, absolutely. And tell me a little bit about your choice, because your children go, well, your eldest went to another provision, and your second child, who's with us, also goes to another more traditional provision. So they do half their time with us and half their time there. Could you tell me a little bit about the rationale behind that and why you chose to do that, just so other parents can have an insight into your thinking?
Sure. Well, at the top of my list was to find somewhere that they would be very happy and explore, ideally be outside, which is why I chose What About Play. But I also, my husband and I thought about sort of going ahead and on to primary school and secondary school beyond that, that the children would need of a bit of an insight as to how a more sort of formal structured environment works with a larger group of children. So we felt that was quite a good balance, so that they had plenty of time to explore and be outside, and then the other half of the week they were sort of in a more structured environment, which would be more typical, I suppose, of the years going ahead. So we wanted to prepare them really for that. That was why we.
Yes, so it's not a complete shock for when they start school.
Yeah, I think the balance of both. The fact that the boys had sort of 2-3 days outside has been brilliant for them, and again it's just the change of scene, going into a more formal setting is a good balance.
Lovely. Louisa, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close this interview?
No, we're just to say a huge thank you, really. I do feel very grateful and so happy that our first sort of few years of education with the boys has been so positive. So thank you and everyone else, really.
Thank you for being so supportive and being so open with your feedback along the way.
So,
I will catch up with you very soon. Thank you, Louisa.
Great, Susie.